Yamuna Tiro Banachari Yamuna Tiro Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodhanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiro Banachari Yamuna Tiro Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari Jaya Mustapha Mansa Paribhajagacharya Sukhaveshya Smadhati Kanta Saraswati Goswami Bhagavad Jaya Nanda Kodi Vaishnava Ki Jaya Ramacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Jaya Names of the whole Sri Krishna Chaitanya Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Prabhu Bhakti Jaya Sri Radha Krishna Bhogavna Sam Kanda Radha Kanda Giriyodan Ki Jaya Vrindavan Dham Ki Jaya Navadip Dham Ki Jaya Ganga Mai Ki Jaya Jamuna Mai Ki Jaya Guru Dwarka Dham Ki Jaya Swami the Bhaktivinoda Ki Jaya All glories to the All glories to the Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Gurudev, all glories to Samad Vaishnava, Vaishnavi devotees, and all glories to our revered speaker, His Grace SALIKA PRABHU. SALIKA PRABHU, we thank you so much for accepting to render this all-important service today by speaking the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Yes, we're very grateful. So we may put the verse on the screen and then you roll it over into your
Thank you
own
very much.
report, and you handle it as you usually do. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much.
Uh,
Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya. Devaya Narayana Namaskritam Narayashaivam Narottamam Devi Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayet Nasta Apraishu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavatam Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamaslu. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto Narayan Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, the author of the Srimad Bhagavatam. By regular attendance in classes on the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is completely destroyed, and loving service is established as an irrevocable fact. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, chapter 10, text number 35. Mayate I anuvalnite, obe hapina agrinanti, Maya shiste vipa. Amuni Bhagavad Rupe, Maya Tehi Anuvalpite, Upeyapinagri Nanti, Maya Shiste Vipasita. Amuni Bhagavad Rupe, Maya Tehi Anuvalite, Upeyapinagri Ananti, Maya Shiste. Word for word translation. All this Bhagavad unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Rupe, in the forms Te unto you, he certainly, effectively, A both, Api also, Na never, Grinanti external, Siste being so. The learned one who knows.
Salika Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, your audio gets lots of breakups. So
that will be my network. I hope it doesn't get bad.
yeah, there are lots of words you speak that does not get through. We only see the movement of your divine lips, but we don't hear the divine words. So okay, if it's the network, what else can we do? Let's just hope that it gets better. But you may continue, please.
But if those persist, I'll try to change the network along.
Okay, then you may try that. Let's see how that goes.
Network messages also comes and it distorts the connection. But for now, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
See how it goes. Let's go for a translation and purport by Divine Grace, the Prabhupada. Can you scroll up a little bit? As just described unto you from the material angle of vision, who knows him well. The impersonalists think of the as above mentioned in his visual rupa or all-pervading universal form, and was unmanifested, indestructible, subtle form, The theories of pantheism and monism are respectively supreme as gross and subtle. By the learned pure devotees of the Lord, because I think it's coming again, but let's see. I'll repeat that.
Salika Prabhu, I'm sorry to interrupt. If possible, I think I may try to read while you try to switch internets to see, because if nobody is looking at the screen, they may not get the information because your words are breaking up a lot.
Well, that's very bad. Let me see if I can network. Okay. Just a minute. I'm almost there. Okay, let's switch now. Just a moment. Krishna, 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 Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Rama, Hari Hari, Hare Krishna.
When will that day be mine? When will that day be mine? Flowers and money, pleasures of this body, seemingly lasting, but what are they worth? Give it your devotion, oh, go about harmony, please let me worship you. after birth. When will that day be mine? When will that day be mine? Chanting names of Krishna, singing deep devotion, ecstasy trembling, and power arise. Body's filled in rapture, feeling pure emotion, rivers of fear will flow from my eyes. When will that day be mine? When will that day be mine? When another dream form, the banks of the Ganges, running and dancing, while singing like mine. Oh Nityananda, oh Gaurahari, there's nothing but your lotus feet to be had. When will that day be mine? When will that day be mine? Drowning in worldliness. When Nityananda, his lotus feet my shelter, allow me to enter the name's marketplace. When will that day be mine? When will that day be mine? Coming stunned in wonder, I will buy and plunder the nectarine levels of the name of Hari, taking as my refuge the feet of pure devotees. I'll be immersed in the name's nectar sweet. When will that day be mine? When will that day be mine? When will I start out in a meek and humble fashion, preaching no wrongness, no message my goal? When will there awaken a feeling of compassion deep in my heart for all fallen souls? When will that day be mine? 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 When will that day be mine?
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. While we wait for our speaker to work on his internet, I think we're going to try to read the translation and the verse, by which time we believe he might be able to have resolved the internet issue. Okay. So, the text is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10, Text 35. And the translation, of course, let's do Amuni Bhagavad Rupe Mayate hi Anuvarnite Ube Apina Grinanti Maya Shriste Vipaschitaha. Translation. Neither of the above forms of the Lord, as just described unto you from the material angle of vision, is accepted by the pure devotees of the Lord who know him well. Purport. The impersonalists think of the absolute personality of Godhead in two different ways, as above mentioned. On the one hand, they worship the Lord in his Vishwa-Rupa, or all-pervading universal form. And on the other, they think of the Lord's unmanifested, indescribable, subtle form. The theories of pantheism and monism are respectively applicable to these two conceptions of the Supreme as gross and subtle. But both of them are rejected by the learned pure devotees of the Lord because they are aware of their factual position. This is very clearly mentioned in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which records Arjuna's experience of the Vishwa-Rupa of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. Adrishta purvam hrishitosmi drishtva bhayena cha pravyatitam manome tat eva me darshaya deva rupam prashita devisha jaganini vashsa. This is from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11, text number 45. Arjuna, as a pure devotee of the Lord, never previously saw the contemplated universal form of the Lord, Vishwarupa. But when he did see it, his curiosities were satisfied. But he was not happy to see such a form of the Lord because of his attachment as a pure devotee. He was afraid to see the gigantic form of the Lord. He therefore prayed to the Lord to assume his four-handed Narayan or Krishna form, which alone could please Arjuna. Undoubtedly, the Lord has the supreme potency to exhibit himself in multifarious forms. But the pure devotees of the Lord are interested in his forms as eternally exhibited in the abode of the Lord, known as the Tripad Vibhuti, or Kingdom of God. The Lord in the Tripad Vibhuti abode exhibits himself in two forms, either with 4 hands or with 2 hands. The Vishwarupa exhibited in the material manifestation has unlimited hands and unlimited dimensions with everything unlimited. The pure devotees of the Lord worship him in his Vaikuntha forms as Narayan with 4 hands or Krishna with 2 hands. Sometimes the same Vaikuntha forms of the Lord are in the material world also by his grace as Sri Ram, Sri Krishna, Sri Narasimhadev, etc. And thus the pure devotees also worship them. Usually the features shown in the material world have no existence in the Vaikuntha planets, and thus they are not accepted by the pure devotees. What the pure devotees worship from the very beginning are eternal forms of the Lord existing in the Vaikuntha planets. The non-devotee impersonalists imagine the material forms of the Lord, and ultimately they merge in the impersonal Brahma-Jyoti of the Lord, whereas the pure devotees of the Lord are worshippers of the Lord both in the beginning and also in the perfect state of salvation eternally. The worship of the pure devotee never stops, whereas the worship of the impersonalist stops after his attainment of salvation, when he emerges in the impersonal form of the Lord known as the Brahma Jyoti. Therefore, the pure devotees of the Lord are described here as Vipassita, or the learned who are in the knowledge of the Lord perfectly. Hare Krishna. So our speaker is back, and we hope his internet is
All you need to do is just give me your
on our
blessing.
side. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Prabhuji,
Krishna.
thank you for
Maganam Tmiranda Sia Ganam Ganam Shalakaya. Chakshu Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Shetayam Manovistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Vipam Paranayam Dadati Swam Padatikam. Vandeyam Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavansha. Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sadhivam. Sadvitam Savadvitam Pariganam Saitam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Devam. Sri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Vata Sri Chatavitam Sha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapati. Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute. Tapta Kanchanam Gaurange Radhe Vindavaneshwari. Vishabhanu Shute Devi Pranamami Nari Priye. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Lagayate Girim. Yakripatam Bande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam. Vanchakarbataru Vyascha Kripasum Vyasibhascha. Patitanam Pavajnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Advaita Gadadara Shinvachari Gura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Tantra Srimad Bhagavatam class began. So we read the text once again. Neither of the above forms of the Lord, as just described unto you, from the material angle of vision, is accepted by pure devotees of the Lord who knows him very well. Who knows him well. Hare Krishna. So thank you all of the devotees who have gathered here for this most auspicious moment of the day. Actually, it's been raining cat and dog here, so the rain has affected the network. I was thinking maybe the other network would be better, and I started running from one network to the other, and I realized that probably the most stable one is this one I'm using, so I had to come back. So I had to try like two other networks. But anyway, we thank Krishna for giving us the opportunity for this wonderful Sangha. It reminds me one story in the Valmiki Ramayana. In the beginning of the Valmiki Ramayana, Valmiki, of course, I won't go into the stories of Valmiki. Valmiki, we all know the personality of Valmiki. He has several births. One of his births was that he was Bhrigu Muni. And we know how he led the sages to test Lord Vishnu and all of his activities in his previous lives. And before he became Bhrigu Muni and official Bhrigu Muni. But when he took the form of Valmiki, the beginning of his life, he had so many activities. But then, after all of what happened, he took to the path of austerity and eventually he became a Brahma Rishi. Brahma Rishi is like the postgraduate study in comparison with mundane education. In mundane education, when you go to the nursery primary, then when you go to the university, they said you have had a first degree. Then from there, you go to do masters. After that, you take a PhD degree and become a doctor. And after that, you become a professor. So in the part of spirituality, when a rishi, or when someone is called a rishi or a sage, yes, he is said to have attained three kala, or the three aspects of knowledge, past, present, and future. But then beyond that is when one becomes a Maharishi. So Valmiki Rishi became a Maharishi, and then when he came to that level of realization, which is said to be the highest form of realization at that level of mysticism, he met his spiritual masters, Narada Muni. Narada Muni is the spiritual master of so many great personalities. So there is this interesting narration at the beginning of his Valmiki Ramayana. He asked, the first very question he asked Narada Muni was, is wanting to know. Narada Muni, we all know, is a spaceman. He travels everywhere. So he asked Narada Muni, in his travel, since he has gone everywhere, both higher, lower, middle planets, he must have seen everyone. So he wants him to describe to him a personality. And he started giving different qualities of the person he wanted. And he ended up giving 16 qualities. And then in this class, because that is not the focus, we're not going to just done Ram Navami last month. But we're not going into that pastimes of Lord Ramchandra today. But the important thing I want to use here is that after describing these qualities that he wanted to see, he wanted somebody who is the most beautiful, but not just beautiful for one moment, but at all times. He wants one person who is knowledgeable. In this way, he describes 16 qualities of a personality he wanted. And when he got into that point, after describing that, according to the text of Valmiki, Narada Muni fell into ecstasy. Why did Narada Muni fall into ecstasy? Because what Valmiki was asking about is not achievable in the form of any personality, both higher or lower planet, or in the middle planet. Only one personality could fit the description of what he was talking about. So, in other words, Valmiki was actually asking about the personality of Godhead when he was describing those qualities. And because Narada Muni had the opportunity to be able to describe the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he fell into ecstasy. We see the same scenario in the Srimad Bhagavatam. When Sukadev Goswami, when he was being asked questions by Maharaj Parikshit, in the second canto, chapter 8, verse number 27, Sukadev Goswami being invited to speak about the glories of Sri Krishna, he became very pleased. In that verse, it is said, in that verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam 2:8-27, he said, Supreme Personality of Godhead. So therefore, for those who are devotees of the Lord, thank you very much, sorry. When you go down in the purport, that relates to the descriptions of the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yes, somewhere there. So Sukadev Goswami, yes, it is said here. Lord Krishna and Arjuna, the Lord and the devotees, respectfully. Similarly, Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the postgraduate study of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, can also be discussed between the scholars and devotees like Sukadev Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit. Otherwise, the real taste of the nectar cannot be realized. So Sukadev Goswami was very pleased with Maharaj Parikshit because he was not at all tired of hearing the topics of the Lord and was more and more anxious to hear them on and on with interest. So when it comes to the subject matter of Srimad Bhagavatam, for those who wants to be liberated, it is the most joyous things. It is said that devotional service is in 3 stages. In the neophyte stages, devotional service is very blissful because even in the most lowest level of bhakti, when one takes a devotional service, one can experience that kind of pleasure when one sincerely takes to the path of devotional service. He can experience some kind of pleasure that cannot be compared with any material experience. And when one gets to the second stage of Madhyama Bhakti, at the stage of Bhakti, when one is actually having deep knowledge about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, its intensity of pleasure increases. And when one becomes a pure devotee, then it cannot be estimated by ordinary person. So therefore, this topic about Srimad Bhagavatam is such a pleasurable thing. So therefore, for one who is seeking to be happy, for one who has become happy, and for one who wants to become more happy, Srimad Bhagavatam is said to be the subject matter for such a person. So in the verse we're reading today, there is be a continuous discussion. Of course, this title of this chapter is said to be the answer to all questions. Srimad Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. And there's been so many narrations about why this chapter is so titled in such a way. So in this particular verse, we've been reading in the last four verses about the three qualities of material nature that the living entity carries. So the question is that how can one who is in a conditioned state of life, how can he release the transcendental subject matter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? That is the subject matter we're going to be talking about. But before we go there, to better discuss this matter, in the very beginning of the purport, Prabhupada is discussing the perception of the impersonalist who think at the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in different particular ways. And Prabhupada explained in the purport that the impersonalists think of the absolute personality of Godhead in two different ways, as above mentioned in the previous verses. But earlier in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Sukadev Goswami has given a one beautiful verse, which is a very popular verse. Vedantita tatva vidas tatva yajnana advayam rameti para amai eti Bhagavan iti sabda in the Srimad Bhagavatam 1:2-11. So Sukadev has already mentioned that the subject matter of transcendence, or the subject matter about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as described by those who have seen, those who have known, those who really knows, they describe the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be realized in three different ways: as Brahman, as Paramatma, and as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in the text that we're reading today, Prabhupada is discussing about the first stage of spiritual realization, transcendentalists, the impersonalists, and their perception of realization, because they are still under the influence of the intrimos as described in the two verses earlier, which is subject matter we are discussing. And the question is that why is it that even though they are called transcendentalists, they cannot be considered to be in the second sentence of that purport? Prabhupada said, the theories of pantheism and monism are respectively applicable to those who to these two conceptions of the Supreme as gross and subtle. But both of them are rejected by the learned pure devotees. Why the learned pure devotees reject this? Because they are completely beyond the three modes of material nature. Yesterday, I was asking one probing question. That since the material senses are considered to be material, and in any way, because they are material senses, so how can the material senses understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Because when the subject matter of transcendence is discussed, the question that arises at the mind is that how do we distinguish? Because Prabhupada is talking about the perceptions of the impersonalists in two various ways. And he's saying that the pure devotees are beyond that. But that question is answered in the Krishna book. In the Krishna book, chapter 87, in the prayers of the personified feathers, Maharaj Parishit asked that very same question that Sadev was asking yesterday. And it reads thus. In the Krishna book, if you can get to that place, Krishna book chapter 87, that question is nicely answered there. It says that King Parishit inquired from Sukadev Goswami. Thank you. Yeah. King Parikshit inquired from Sukadev Goswami about a very important topic in understanding the transcendental subject matter. His question was, since Vedic knowledge generally deals with the subject matter of the three qualities of the material world, how then can it approach the subject matter of transcendence, which is beyond the approach of the three material modes? Since the mind is material and the vibration of words is a material sound, how can the Vedic knowledge expressing by material sound the thoughts of the material mind approach transcendence? Description of a subject matter necessitates describing its source of emanation, its qualities, and the activities. So such descriptions can be possible only by thinking with the material mind and the vibrating material words. Brahma, or the absolute truth, has no material qualities, but our power of speaking does not go beyond the material qualities. How then can Brahman, the absolute truth, be described by your words? I do not see how it is possible to understand transcendence from such expressions of material sound. This which is what Prabhu was probing us with yesterday. So when you go down, this question is answered. And it says that the purpose of King Parikshit's inquiry is a long statement. We will jump a little bit and I will summarize. But I'll read two more paragraphs and then I'll continue the explanation. So it says that the purpose of King Parikshit's inquiry was to ascertain from Sukadev Goswami whether the Vedas ultimately describe the absolute truth as impersonal or as personal. Understanding of the absolute truth progresses in three features, just like I've quoted Vedanti Tattva Vedas earlier. Impersonal Brahman, Paramatma, localized in every art, and at last the Supreme Personality of God is Krishna. So the Vedas deals with three departments of activities. One is called Karma Kanda, or activities under Vedic injunction, which generally, so this sorry, because of time, let's just go up. I want to read a particular place where the answer is. Prabhupada explained all of these, how different aspects of go forward. So this explaining in, yeah, I think it's in the next, stop. Yeah. Yes. In answering King Parikshit's question, Sukadev Goswami replied that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has created the mind, senses, and the living force of the living entity for the purpose of sense gratification and transmigration from one kind of body to another, as well as for the purpose of allowing liberation from the material conditions. This is the answer to the question. So, in other words, one can utilize the senses, the mind, and living force for sense gratification and transmigration from one body to another, or for the matter of liberation. The Vedic injunctions are there just to give the conditioned soul the chance for sense gratification under regulative principles, and thereby also to give them the chance to promotion to higher conditions of life. Ultimately, if the consciousness is purified, one comes to its original position and goes back home, back to God. Thank you very much, Sadi. So this is the subject. So Sukadev Goswami explained that the three level of realization of God, because when Prabhupada is criticizing the impersonalists in those two levels of realization, when we look at the text of the purport of today, when Prabhupada was when he was condemning the realization of the transcendentalists in these two ways, culminating in pantheism and monism, Prabhupada concluded by saying, this is that only the devotee, and one who has come to the platform of devotional service, is able to realize the Supreme Personality of God, as stated by Sukadev Goswami in the verse we quoted earlier. So when Prabhupada quoted the verse of Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna saw the Vishwarup, and Prabhupada went further to explain that the pure devotees are beyond the material conception. Why? Because of association with the transcendence. Although the material senses is material, but it, as explained in that prayers of the personified Vedas, the material senses, although it is material, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has made it in such a way that it has a dual purpose. What is the dual purpose of the material senses? The material senses has the ability to allow the living entities to be able to experience to its fullest sense gratification. as much as the body can contain. But at the same time, the same senses, when engaged in the service of in devotional service, or in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by the process of chanting, hearing, worshiping the deities, the senses become purified. They no longer reflect the quality of materialism. So, in other words, devotional service is said to be the cure for the disease conditional material senses of the living entities. And that is what Prabhupada is trying to make us understand here in this verse, that although the transcendentalists have these realizations, but their realization, when it is devoid of the process of bhakti or devotional service, it becomes incomplete. Only when those transcendental activities, when they are merged into the activities of devotional service, only then they become purifying. In the same canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 2, in text number 7, Prabhupada said, Askodek Goswami gave another very interesting statement about the potency of devotional service, where he says that 127, Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayatyasu Vairagyam Jnanam Chadyat Aitukam, that by rendering devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires costless knowledge and detachment from the material world. This is the disease of the conditioned soul in the material world. The living entities in the material world, in that first canto, chapter 2, text number 7. Thank you very much for bringing that up. Yes. Yeah, let's go into the verse, because there's some very important statement made by Prabhupada in the purport. So, it is said here that by rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, the Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires costless knowledge. That is the reward. The first reward of bhakti is that the moment one start engaging in devotional service, those material senses, by the grace of bhakti, nasta aprayesu abadresu nityam bhagavatam sevaya bhagavati uttamans loge bhakti bhavati naistiki. By the potency of bhakti, by the practice, regulated activities in devotional service, one acquires what is called here in this verse costless knowledge. What is that costless knowledge? That knowledge which is manifested in unshakable faith. One becomes nishta, it attains nishta, it becomes steady. And then from that point, is automatically what will happen is that it develops detachment from the material world. And when it develops detachment from material world, automatically what happens is that it started doing what? It started experiencing what is called rushi. It started experiencing taste of spiritual transcendental mellows. And in that way, his senses are no longer material. So Srila Goswami also mentioned that in the nectar of devotion, in the nectar of devotion, that by engaging the senses in the service of the man, senses becomes transcendentally purified, and one becomes attain the transcendental position of bhakti. So the material modes of material nature, the three qualities of material nature are so powerful and keeps the material conditioned living entity in the material world, life after life. But by the process of the devotional service, as mentioned in the purport of the text that we're reading today, Srila Prabhupada mentioned that to achieve the contact of the Supreme Personality of God, Sri Krishna, is a great science. In the purport, Prabhupada is saying that it's a great science, and it is open for all living entities, including the Sudras, Vaishyas, women. That is in the purport of the text that we just read, 127. Prabhupada is saying that the process of devotional service is a great science, and it is open for all living entities, including the Sudras, Vaishyas, women, and even those lower than the low-born Sudras. So what to speak of the high-class men, like the qualified Brahmanas and the great self-realized kings? The other high-grade activities designated as sacrifice, charity, austerity, etc., are all corollary factors following the pure and scientific bhakti cult. That is the purport of of the 127. So this pure devotional service, it has its own potency in itself to purify, no matter how conditioned the living entity is, or attached to material science, if by the association with bhakti and the process of devotional service, and those who are sadhu, who are engaging in devotional service, such a powerful living entity, becomes so transcendentally situated, and it can realize the supreme personality of God in devotion and service. So the essence of the text today, Prabhupada is bringing to fore is that the material senses being conditioned by the three modes of material nature is not an impediment. As Shukadev Goswami himself has says that that this highest form of devotion or dharma is not interrupted, cannot be interrupted, cannot be impeded, because just simply by engaging in those activities, nothing can stop. The conditioned material senses has no ability to stop one who is engaged in the devotional service. So Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he further explains that Prabhupada was explaining the three levels of realization. He's talking about the three-part vibhuti above in the purport. Prabhupada is explaining that Arjuna, as a pure devotee of the Lord, never previously saw the contemplated universal form of the Lord, but when he did see it, his curiosity was satisfied, but he was not happy to see such a form of the Lord because of his attachment as a pure devotee. He was afraid to see the gigantic form of the Lord. He therefore prayed to the Lord to assume his four-handed Narayana or Krishna form, which alone could please Arjuna. Undoubtedly, the Lord has the supreme potency to exhibit himself in multifarious form, but the pure devotees of the Lord are interested in his form as eternally exhibited in the abode of the Lord, known as the three-part vibhuti, or the three, and Prabhupada explained that the Vaikuntha planets and the different forms of the Vaikuntha planets, Vaikuntha planet, Goloka, and Goloka Vrindavan. So, in the conclusion of the purport, Prabhupada says the worship of the pure devotees never stops, whereas the worship of the impersonalist stops after attaining of salvation when he merges into the impersonal form of the Lord, known as the Brahmajyoti. And this is a very important statement. And that is why the impersonalist will definitely fall down, because the living entity by nature is eternally active. There's no time the living entity can remain inactive. So therefore, the impersonalists, when they attain this Brahmajyoti and remain there for some time, because it is nature, it is opposed to their original nature of always consciously engaged in activities. So they want to come back. And after so many years of existence in that ring, they come down and then take to activities again. So, but the devotee of the Lord is never experiences that, because when he attains the platform of bhakti, he either goes to Vaikuntha planet, where he worships the Lord in his four-handed form as Narayan, or by dint of association, if he attains he attains the supreme abode of the Lord, which Prabhupada is describing in the purport, the three-part vibhuti. So the three rings of the higher planetary system, spiritual planets. So this verse, in essence, is glorifying the process of bhakti above any other part of bhakti. There are several verses in the scriptures that are referencing this, where the scriptures has made us understand that although just as we read in that Krishna book, chapter 87, the prayers of the personified Vedas, the personified Vedas, they carefully narrated the worship of the Vedas and the goal of the Vedas, and they take the prayers beyond the worship of the Vedas, and they explain the three different levels of God realization to glorify the process of bhakti. And that is what the whole of the essence of the Srimad Bhagavatam is all about, that this devotional service is the highest level of perfection. There is not anything that is higher than it, and it is joyfully performed, as Lord Krishna told Arjuna in the devotional service. So therefore, in Krishna consciousness, ultimately, as we endeavor in different parts of our endeavor in devotional service, the goal should always be in the mind. As Prabhupada concluded in the purpose. So therefore, a pure devotee of the Lord are described here as the Vibhasita, or the learned, who are in knowledge of the Lord perfectly. And remember that in that First Canto 2:7, Prabhupada has explained, Shukadeva Goswami has explained the kind of knowledge, that costless knowledge, which in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna himself has mentioned, Bhakunam Jamanam Ante, Kinamam Man Propadanti, Vasudeva Savamiti, Samahatma, Suduhalaba, that kind of knowledge, when one attains that level of knowledge, nothing is attractive to him again. He simply surrender and worship Vasudeva, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is bhakti, this is devotional service. And this is what we have been given by Srila Prabhupada. And it is even after getting this highest gift, sometimes we still get attracted to material mundane senses. And it is act of our inattentiveness in devotional service that makes one taste devotional, the nectar of devotion, and gets to drop back to material sense desires. So as we practice our Krishna consciousness, we should constantly remember that although there are so many attractive paths as given in the Vedas, but ultimate goal is to come to that platform of bhakti, which there is nothing that can be compared to it, as stated in this verse by Shukadeva Goswami, that those forms of the Lord that is being explained in the earlier verses, which are based on the realization of the purification of the material senses, covered by the three modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, and one can attain this transcendental platform, which is that of the bhakti, where one can see Krishna face to face. And like one of my god brother will say, and say that Krishna, so this is you, let's have a handshake. And we'll have an handshake with Krishna, and then we'll dance with him, we'll eat prasadam with him, like the Gopas they did with Krishna in the forest of Vrindavan. I'm hoping and praying that one day we'll get there. I never know what my faith is, but then that is our desire, to one day become like that. And that desire is not wrong, because even though devotional service is desireless, but we should desire to become, because now our desire is filled with material conditioning. But when we desire the Supreme Personality, the beauty is that when we desire that, Krishna's promises, he said, because our desire is focused on him, he will remove our material conditioning, just like he did to Dhruva Maharaj. When Dhruva Maharaj chanted, he has all kinds of desires, but he chanted the name of the Lord. And when he becomes, when he fortunate and he see the Supreme Personality of God, when he saw the Personality of God, he lost all his material desire. The Lord fulfilled his material desire, but at the same time, he still giving pure devotional service. And that is what Shukadeva Goswami has said. It's also in this same second canto of First Canto chapter 2 also, where it is mentioned that Akama Sava Kama Uva Mukcha Kama Udaradi. That whether we want all material desires or we are free from material desire, we want all kind of mystic yoga or perfection of yoga or whatever we want, or we don't want whatever it is, or we're in the position of a pure devotee who doesn't want anything. We should worship the Supreme Personality of God, Krishna, and then everything can be fulfilled. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made it very easy in this age. We don't even have to perform austerity like Valmiki, who has to perform austerity for 60,000 years of his life, simply by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. One walk his way into Goloka Vrindavan, just truly, Hare Krishna. I'll stop here for comments, contribution for devotees. Thank you very much for giving the opportunity to start this capacity. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, His Grace SALIKA Prabhu, for rendering this amazing service. I think a day or two ago, during our Bhagavatam class, I don't remember who it was, but one devotee had asked devotees having anxieties, or devotees do not have anxieties. And I remember saying it that devotees oftentimes have the most anxieties.
Absolutely.
Because I can imagine the anxiety you were having when your internet was not helping you. But from that anxiety, it actually encouraged you to be more determined to fix the problem. And here we are, you've been able to speak so beautifully. And I'm not sure if it is appropriate to mention this, but I think I will, for the sake of clarity. Those of us who know our revered speaker for today, His Grace SALIKA PRABHU, nobody has ever seen him in sunglasses till today. And the reason he is having this sunglasses on is because he had a surgery done on his eye, and therefore the eye is very sensitive to light, so you have to put on sunglasses to prevent direct light contact. And you know, if you're using Zoom, you're using light, either on your phone, on your tablet, or your computer, whichever device you use, you're using light. So the reflection of the light can harm your eyes. Therefore, he sacrificed to speak, even though he was not the originally scheduled speaker for today. He sacrificed to step in, and on top of that, with his eye problem, he still decided to step in to speak. And when he stepped in to speak, Maya says, okay, you kind of stubborn. I'll deal with you. I will check. I will make sure your internet disturbs you. And he still fought through it. And here we are. He was able to speak so perfectly. So this is a very wonderful example. And we pray to Guru and Krishna that somehow or other we all will have this intense desire to serve the Lord somehow or other. So Prabhuji, thank you so much for rendering this service, and secondly for giving us this much depth of wisdom in trying to approach the Supreme Lord, Shri Krishna. So thank you. Any devotee with any question, comments, realizations, please? You may unmute and go ahead to ask your question or speak. Hare Krishna. You don't need to raise your hand up. You just have to unmute and go ahead and speak. Thank you. SALIKA PRABHU, it's very interesting. You quoted Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, text number 7. And when we read the purport, I said, wow, this is very interesting. Srila Prabhupada has answers to everything. Everything is answered. If we may remember, in the early 80s, the Hare Krishna devotee was very, very powerful. You can see them, hear them anywhere, everywhere. So in the United States in particular, lots of people thought that these Hare Krishna people, they have some powers that once you join them, they will influence your mind, and that no matter what someone tells you not to associate with these people, you're not going to hear them. And so there was something called deprogramming. So there were lots of people who claimed that they knew the art of deprogramming people's mind from how their minds have been wired by different cults and different organizations. So there was a very lengthy debate by one of such deprogrammers called, what was his name? Ted Patrick. That was his name, Ted Patrick. I hope he is still alive. To to witness Hare Krishna as it is today. Ted Patrick, and he had a very lengty debate with His Holiness Sridhananda Das Goswami Maharaj. This is available on YouTube if one wants to watch that later on. So he was saying, Ted Patrick was saying it that his son went out, met these Hare Krishna people, he listened to them, and he immediately came back and then took some few things with him, and then he ran away from the home. And they were looking for him, they could not find. Later on, he came back to the house and told his family that he has seen this group, Hare Krishna people, and he decided to be with them. And that was it. He ran away back to the temple. So this Ted Patrick, who claims to be a deprogramming person, later on was able to get hold of his son. And he said no matter what he did, he could not change his son's mind from not running back to the Hare Krishna people. And this text, Prabhuji, you quoted 127, is the reason. Because devotional service is fire. And once you touch it, it is slowly going to burn all your material desires. So I'm so thankful that you quoted this verse, and Sri Prabhupada states it in the paper. So if you do not want to give up your material pleasures, don't listen to Hare Krishna people. Period. You listen to them, and once you listen to them, you get hooked up, and the fire will slowly but steadily start consuming all your material hankerings and desires. Most of us, if not all of us, are very happy that we got our material attachments slowly but steadily burned up by this Hare Krishna. So that is the power of Hare Krishna. Thank you for sharing that, Sri Salika Prabhu. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
It is interesting. When I was to do this, one of my family members saw because I've been on restrictions since last week after the surgery. They said, but they said you're going to do class again. So I managed to, I've not gone out of the temple that time. So I had to sneak out in the excuse of going to do something. So I came out to do this class. And then he saw the poster of the Hare Krishna and said, but then they said you are going to give class. You said you are not doing anything. I said, okay. I said, actually, the thing is this, that there is nothing we can do about this Yamaraj letters. So while we still have the opportunities, please allow me, whatever mistakes I'm committing. And I was sharing the story. I think we published it in one of our newsletters. When Yamaraj told that his wonderful friends that he will send him his 6 letters before his time to die, and when it is time, he will come. So he forgot that Yamaraj will not come with the paper and pen like we use in the material world. So I was sharing that. I said, I got my own 3rd letter now, according to that story, because in the story, the 3rd letter is the I. When the I start going, then you start telling you now, yeah, time is coming close, Yamaraj is coming close, so you have to be prepared. So if I sleep now, I don't wake up, what can you do about it? Nothing. So while I still have this opportunity, please permit me. So I'm just hearing that it is interesting. Devotional service is such that it's so powerful. The Prabhupada has given us everything, and in line with the purpose of this, especially the title of this particular chapter, Bhagavatam answers all questions. It's an ecstatic chapter, honestly.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. So anyone with any questions, comments?
devotees are very satisfied.
Probably, in fact, when you were sharing some of the different quotes from different scriptures, there was one interesting thing I learned along the line, and that is when we read a particular statement from the scriptures, of course, whatever is said in the scriptures must be accepted because it's said in the scriptures. But just like Srila Prabhupada was explaining that there are different levels, different categories of God realization, the Brahman, Paramatma, and the Bhagavan. So if we stop at wherever we are without trying to move further, we may not be able to achieve the ultimate. In the sense that Lord Krishna explained in this same canto 2, when he was explaining the Virat Rupa form, he says the Virat Rupa form is God. But here we're seeing that even though it is God, but it is not the ultimate. And therefore, there are those who submit to this form of God realization they call like animism, where they believe, which is not actually a belief, it's a fact that the Spirit of God permeates through everything. So the Spirit of God is in anything and everything. So they worship the mountains, they worship the rivers, and they get some realizations, or they get their questions answered, their submissions answered. And so to them, they conclude that this is God. But here we're learning that it is like the very, very fundamental. So while we were reading, I was thinking to myself, we have to keep studying, we have to keep hearing, keep reading, keep studying, keep hearing. Because the more we do, the higher we can get. What do you think about that? Did you also sense that?
Yeah, you see, when they said someone is an atheist, there is a saying that the greatest of the atheistic person is not the one who says there is no God, but one who by his conscious or unconscious activities limits God's existence. And that is what the impersonalists have the problem with, because they think this is the end of it. They think I've got to the end. And that mentality of thinking I've got to the zenith of God realization is the atheism. Because the basic fundamental definition of God is that is unlimited. So therefore, for one to be called an atheistic person, the first and fundamental principles of faith you must have is that there is no limit to understanding God. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited that when he took the form of Srimati Radharani, who is the highest of all, of course, who is himself, but expressing in that mood of Radharani, you see that there is no limit to God realization. Oh.
Yeah. I think we lost our speaker again. I think somebody might have called him on his phone. That's what usually happens. Well, he will come back again. But Thakur Murari Prabhu, please you may unmute.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Please accept my obeisances and all glories to Srila Prabhupada and to your Mr. Revered speaker for the presentation and the question and so forth. So it seems that you have to worship. There has to be some sort of worship. In other words, now, it is said that you worship the Lord, that the internal potency, external potency. And so we know that there are all kind of, isms, monism, pantheism. So it seems that, yes, there has to some sort of worship, So, as I was saying, in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna, well, universal form, and you know, we see it and realize, oh, hey, you know, Arjuna say, hey, this is not my thing, you know.
Yeah.
But in the Bhagavatam, we realize that, and the Viratupa, well, interesting thing that if you keep studying from Canto 1 upwards, you know, continue, you know, expeditiously, you realize in the whole aspect of creation, it is mentioned more than once because it is so, as one says, technical, it's deep, you know, you have to go through it. But realize that it's a part of the Lord, everything comes from God, but the Viratupa form, it's not permanent. It's there for, in other words, in order for some people to see some sort of form, yes. So you have the Virat, but we know, as I said, pure devotee is not interested. Because we realize, no, that's not eternal.
Yeah,
that is manifested every now and then. But you know, the subject matter is you know, really, really deep. So I'm usually appreciative of the presenter and the speaker and all those concerned in the discussion of this very technical subject. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, His Grace Thakur Prabhu. You're absolutely on point. I think in one of the verses of Shri Upanishad, the devotee prays to the Lord that, dear Lord, please remove this effulgence of yours, the Brahman effulgence, for your devotee, because your devotee wants to see your beautiful two-handed form. So Srila Prabhupada explained in this particular purport that in the spiritual world, the Supreme Lord has two forms. The Narayan form, which is 400 forms, and then the Krishna form, 200 forms. But in the material world, Krishna has the Virat Rupa form. They are endless. The eyes are endless, the heads are endless, and they are not very attractive, I should say. The Virat Rupa form is not very attractive. It is only there as a matter of inquisitiveness. So Arjuna said that my inquisitiveness has been answered, but I'm not attracted to this universal form. Please, I want to see you in your personal form, in Vaikuntha. So Srila Prabhupada explains, either in the 400 form or in the 200 form. That is, so there are different levels. We all know in this life of existence, there are levels to anything and everything. I sometimes watch martial arts, and you can tell that there are different levels to that sport. You know, someone who is a very neophyte in the sport, he may be very good, but if he comes across somebody who is also good but has been practicing it for a long time, there are some strategies, tricks under his sleeve that you may not know. You think you're winning, and he will overcome you and win you. Same as in anything, everything, there are levels. So in the same way, when it comes to God realization, there are levels. And like you rightly said, Srimad Bhagavatam is packaged in such a way that we have to go through studying the Bhagavatam in a very systematic chronological order. So by the time we start from Canto 1 till we get to Canto 10 and then to Canto 12, there is no doubt in the minds of such a student that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, thank you for sharing that, Thakur Murari Prabhu. And I am not sure. Okay, Salika Prabhu is back. Salika Prabhu, if everything is okay, you may unmute and then take over. I think we've come to almost close to the end of the class for today. But you may run down.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Chakra Prabhu.
Dandava Pranam. All glory to Guru, and all glory to you.
Hare Krishna.
SALIKA Prabhu, thank you very much for the elaborate explanation that you this question is when you made mention of the temporal nature of the Virat Rupa. And we also say that Krishna is eternal and his pastimes are also eternal. Now, we know that the Virat Rupa, as long as the material world is manifested, that also makes itself manifest. So when the material world is drawn, so where does the Virat Rupa go? Because this is Krishna. And the second part of my question is, if Krishna is eternal and his pastimes and everything about him is eternal, we know that Krishna comes to this planet to perform his pastimes. So if the pastimes is eternal, then where is it? Because if something is eternal, it must always be going on. Now we say Krishna came here, performed his pastime 5,000 years ago. But today, me and you, we go to where he performed the pastimes and we are not seeing the pastime. And even the scripture says that Krishna left. And when he was leaving, he left with all his paraphernalia. So how then is that pastime eternal?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I'm having so many attacks today, so just bear with me. My video will be off, but I'll try to cope.
Yeah.
Krishna pastime is eternal. There is no stoppage to Krishna's pastime. But as it is explained, sometimes it becomes manifested here, just like the good example given is that of the sun. The sun, in my location now, is about setting. When you go to another location, the sun is about to rise. So Krishna's pastime is the same. Sometimes it is manifested in a particular location, and then we can see it. But sometimes it is unmanifested. But its pastimes is never stopped. Just like the sun, sun is never setting or rising. The sun is always shining its glory, but according to the coverage of the cloud, the sun seems to be setting, and we say the sun has set. But the sun is standing there, it's in its position, not changing. So in the same way, Krishna's Leela, our pastimes, is eternally manifesting in that same way. But depending on where we are and our situation, we see it or we do not see it. So this is what is going on. But Krishna's pastime is eternal. And that's why appear the virtues of the Lord. This is why it is said that when one becomes perfect in the path of bhakti, and when one becomes pure in devotional service, even in this life, very last time, he goes to Krishna's planet. He goes to the planet where Krishna is presently performing his pastimes. And he joins with the Gopals and Gopis there to learn how to serve Krishna eternally. And then after that, he goes back to his eternal life. That is the explanation of the acharyas on the subject matter of manifesting and unmanifest Leela of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I hope that helps.
Well, definitely it will help, but you were breaking up again.
The question is a follow-up question is that, like we understand that Dhruva's planet is in the material world, but it's a spiritual planet. So when there's dissolution, it doesn't affect Dhruva's planet. So if Dhruva's planet is that powerful to the extent that when there is even a dissolution, it doesn't affect Dhruva's planet, then how come the whole pastime of Krishna in Vrindavan, Krishna manifests his Vrindavan pastimes in the spiritual, he manifests here on the earth planet in Vrindavan. So how come that we say he's gone? And when there is dissolution, or is it that when there is dissolution, the Vrindavan where Krishna performed the first time will also will still be remaining?
Thank you very much, Prabhu, for that beautiful probing question. But the fact to realize is that for those who appear devotees, when you go to Vrindavan, as we speak, you see Krishna and his gopis and gopis in the groups of Vrindavan, that me and you cannot see because they're talking about conditioning. When I went to Vrindavan for the first time, when I went to the place, I was thinking I was in New York City or Lagos, Nigeria, because I couldn't believe this is the Vrindavan that I've read in the book that I've meditated upon. But so people devotees, and that is why I say, in Kamani, Sadbasu, Kapad, Richard, in Lobana, he has said, when the eye is purified by the fire of all of God, Krishna actually, when Krishna is not physically here, it is actually because of the conditioning that we have. Krishna is eternally manifested. As you are speaking, as you are sitting where you sit, as I'm sitting, Krishna is standing right by my side, but I cannot see him. So the Lila of Krishna, the process of Krishna, is eternal. That is why it is called nature Lila. Depending on that, and this is why in the beginning of the lecture we quoted that verse, we don't with us. The self-realized soul is the Lord is realized. It is perceived according to the conditioning of the living entities. So when one is a pure devotee, it sees him everywhere. When he's
Salika Prabhu.
In his 200 forms.
Sorry, we know you are trying your best to answer Srila Chakra Prabhu's questions, but your audio is not audible at all. I don't know if you.
God. So sorry. I think energy is dealing with me.
Yeah. Of course, we know that sometimes questions are asked so that the subject matter can be expanded. It's not necessarily mean that the person asking the question does not understand or does not know, but the person wants the subject matter to be expanded so that people in general will understand it much better. And we know that is what you try to do, but your audio is not clear at all.
Yeah, it's so bad and unfortunate.
Yeah.
I mean, as a pending, right? For the purpose of the condition soul, spread across the three planets. He has to take the condition soul and is acting in that capacity, asking questions. But Arjuna is Nara, and Krishna is Narayana. So Arjuna is never delivered, but he's asking questions as a condition soul for the benefit of all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, thank you, but we know that just like Harichakra Prabhu himself was saying, in fact, Srila Prabhupada also states in the purport that we read that the the Virat Rupa form is not eternal because it is seen or is manifested in this material world. And so this material world gets destroyed from time to time. We say the rivers represent his veins. The vegetation represents the hair on his body. And we see sometimes, so let's say we have one particular forest. So that particular forest represents the hair on Krishna's body. And then some development comes up and the whole vegetation is cleared. And now we have skyscrapers. So does that mean that Krishna has lost his hair on his body? No, Krishna's hair on his body is not there. But because this is a material manifestation, even though it is God, but it is not eternal. And that contradicts the nature of God, because the real nature of God is that of eternality, bliss, and knowledge. But Krishna manifests in these forms just to help certain people who are at the very beginning of trying to approach God. And it helps them. And if they continue building up from where they are at, then slowly and gradually they may be able to come up to the level of realizing Krishna in his Bhagavan form, in his 200 or 400 form. Now talking about Dhruvaloka not getting destroyed. Dhruvaloka not getting destroyed. What about Vrindavan? When the entire earth gets destroyed, everything also gets destroyed also. Yes, externally, that is how we will see it. But internally, it still goes on. Just as it is said that those who have the blessings of the Supreme Lord can still see the residence going on in Vrindavan, not in the spiritual world, but on this material planet in India. You go to Vrindavan, the residence is still going on. But Srila Prabhupada says that Krishna reserves the right to reveal himself to whom he wants to reveal himself to. And so Krishna has not desired for me to see the residence, so I'm not seeing it. But there are those that Krishna has given them the opportunity to see, and they see and they tell us. And we cannot say that Srila Prabhupada will tell us something that is not real. All we can do is to pray that someday, we may be able to see these things. Thank you.
Yeah, that is the real essence of devotional service.
Yes.
The real essence of devotional service is that, like Shalika Goswami told us, hope upon hope, because that is where the spirit of success devotional service is. That, and that statement of the 10th country of the Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 14:8.
Salika Prabhu, I'm wondering if you're using a microphone. If you're using a microphone, maybe you should stay a little distant away from the microphone, because at times it gets clearer and at times it gets really muffled.
It's the network, actually.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Went off. Actually, challenges today because of the heavy rains. So the light is off, and I'm not in the temple, like I said. So The generator here is not working, so I couldn't charge the battery of the laptop.
Okay, okay. All right, thank you. I think we have Madhavan Prabhu. Please, you may unmute.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
All glories unto your lotus feet. All glories unto the lotus feet of the assembly of devotees.
Hare Krishna.
So, yeah. So I first of all want to commend the efforts of SALIKA Prabhu. He has made a lot of frantic efforts. So, and even with the little time we had him, he made a very wonderful contribution, which satisfied all of us, especially as he was able to answer some previously asked questions in the previous lectures, especially the question of how I think I'll remember later. So he satisfied us by giving us some quotations. So this question of if if the material world is temporary or not permanent, I believe the material world is the external energy of the Supreme Lord. And what happened is it's also eternal. But the only difference is that we have manifestation and demanifestation. You know, the world itself goes in yuga by yuga. We start Satya Yoga, Theta Yoga, Dwapara Yoga, Kali Yoga. Then after some time, the manifestation takes place. Then again, manifestation. So we see that everything about the Lord is eternal, you know, but it's only that the material nature, you know, it manifests for some time, and later there will be the manifestation. Then the other point I want to pick upon about this purpose, how the impersonalists was described, that the impersonalists think of the absolute personality of God in two different ways. You know, first of all, they see the Supreme Lord as all-pervading, universal form. You see, so and then the other way, they think the Lord unmanifested, indescribable, subtle form. So I think this explanation, you know, really describes the situation of the impersonality. There's so much belief in that. So, but for the purpose of preaching as a devotee, we have difficulty in the sense that somebody who believes that the Lord is all-pervading, you know, unmanifested, indescribable, and subtle, then you are presenting it to them now that God has a form. To them, it's like blasphemy. It's like one is blasphemy. So, and I think their major problem is that it was explained by Prabhupada that religion without philosophy, you know, is sentimentalism or dogmatism. Whereas philosophy with religion, or what am I saying? Religion without philosophy is like mental speculation. So, I don't know. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Are you with me?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So I think the problem with the impersonalists is that they practice their own religion without philosophy. They are sort of dogmatic, you know, just believe, just take it like that. But if the time they now decide to be philosophical, then they can reason along and see that the Lord himself is unlimited. So, you know, like that, they can decide to move forward. And scripture also stated that God is realized in three aspects. The impersonal form, that's a stage. So just like Sade Prabhu explained, it depends on how far you want to go. Everything is on level. So, but if you stop at being an impersonalist, oh, God is unlimited, you cannot see God, then it's very difficult for them to move forward. So those who realize God in the form of Paramatma, the yogis, then above that is the Bhagavan. So it depends on how far one wants to go. That's just one little contribution. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for sharing. Well, sometimes we may say that impersonalists do not have philosophy because their philosophy does not hold. But actually, they have philosophy. There are so many references in the scriptures where impersonalist philosophy is addressed. But we sometimes say they do not have philosophy because their philosophy does not hold water before the Vaishnavas. But outside of Vaishnavism, the impersonalist philosophy is very, very strong and very, very convincing. And that is part of the reason why Lord Chaitanya recommended to devotees to avoid hearing these impersonalistic philosophies, because they can be very flowery, very cosmetically, very attractive to the senses. Because like we read from the paper, Lord Krishna made this body and the senses to help the living entity enjoy the material world, from moving to one place to different bodies, just to enjoy. But the same senses can be dovetailed in the service of Krishna. So those who do not dovetail their senses to serving Krishna will be somehow compelled to enjoy this material environment. The enjoyment is there. Sometimes some devotees say there is no material enjoyment. There is material enjoyment, but it is not eternal. And whatever we enjoy materially also brings about pain and miseries at the end of it. Everything we can think of, whatever brings us joy materially, also brings us pain. Srila Prabhupada gives the example, like when a mother gives birth to a baby, her joy has no limits. But that same joy, if the mother loses the baby, so much pain. If the woman did not have child, there is some pain. But she's not going to suffer the pain of losing a child. So everything materially that gives us pleasure is only short-lived. Well, I think this is how far we may go in today's discussion. It's been very nice. Somehow it's been quite interactive. Today is Friday, last day of the week, and the last day of the month. And we're very grateful we have our own who spoke and shared his love and wisdom with us, as he always does. And like we said, and he himself also shared with us what is going through in health-wise, and still took the, I wouldn't say risk, but decided to speak to do this service. It's very laudable. It's very, very amazing. And we can only hope and pray to the Lord that we all be blessed to have this intense desire to hear in Srimad Bhagavatam, to speak in Bhagavatam, to read in Bhagavatam, and finally to serve Bhagavatam. So on this note, we're going to humbly request all the devotees to kindly unmute, and we all chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our appreciation to our revered speaker, His Grace SALIKA PRABHU, and also for the Lord bringing us all together once again to hear about Himself and His pure devotees. Jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna.
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama
Rama,
Rama, Hare Hare. Vancha kalpatarabhyas Patitana Matavanabhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. All the great Salika Prabhu Ki Jai. All blessed Samud Vaishnav devotees Ki Jai.